Back in the English Premier League, their tea-time kick-off sees Manchester United play their old rivals Liverpool. United boss Louis van Gaal says he's not a dictator after reports that many of his players were unhappy and there was some unrest. He says the fans are happy too and they're chanting his name at games.
Now the fans are shouting every week, Louis van Gaal's army! Louis van Gaal's army! So also the fans are very satisfied with Louis van Gaal. And my players are also satisfied with me. All the players are communicating with me. They are coming to my office. Believe me, it is like it is. But I'm not a dictator, I'm a communicator. And I've said it in advance before.
Well, now in the tennis, how do you explain Serena Williams' exit in the semi-finals of the US Open? Well, perhaps all the hype and all the talk surrounding her chance to achieve the calendar Grand Slam just got to her in the end. Chris Evert, the former champion turned pundit, certainly thinks so. She reckons that Serena froze and was paralysed by nerves when one set up in her semi-final match. Her victorious opponent, the unseeded Italian Roberta Vinci, had mixed emotions herself after her 3-sets victory, which now sets up an all-Italian final with Flavia Pelletta. As Adam Wilde now reports.
For the world's best, the dream departs. The historic calendar Grand Slam has disappeared. Serena Williams leaving in her wake just disbelief and Roberta Vinci's tears of joy. Few predicted it would end like this. 6 times Williams has been crowned champion at Flushing Meadows, and while she won the first set, she did so with a look that suggested this story may just have a surprise ending. Vinci has never been in a Grand Slam semi-final before, but at the age of 32, she was now playing the tennis of her life. To a deciding set, and emotions telling their own tale. Serena's sister Venus, not the only one finding it all rather hard to believe. The Italian was not even seeded for this tournament, but now she was taking every opportunity to tell the world this was becoming all about her. If there was a question over whether Vinci could keep her nerve, this was how she answered it. A moment then of history, although far from the history tennis expected. Adam Wilde, BBC News.
Well, afterwards, Vinci was rather apologetic because she knew what it would have meant to Serena.
But of course, I'm a little bit really sad for Serena because she's an incredible player, #1, almost career Grand Slam, all the Grand Slam. So, but what I have to say, I'm happy. I don't know. It's tough to explain my emotion right now.
Now in the men's singles, Roger Federer will face the world #1 Novak Djokovic in the final after beating fellow Swiss Stan Wawrinka in straight sets. The 17-time Grand Slam champion took the first set indeed 6-4 and then went on to win the second 6-3, and he finished by sealing his place in the final in style with an ace. So he'll now play Novak Djokovic tomorrow. He knocked out the defending champion Marin Cilic in straight sets. In Rugby League's Super 8 series, Wigan Warriors beat Hull FC 30 points to 24 at the DW, their 3rd win in a row now. The Warriors took a big step towards victory on the hour mark when Ben Flower put them 10 points clear, and they stretched that lead to 14 not long afterwards. But Hull fought back. Jack Logan's converted try, bringing the score to within 2 points. And Wigan, with Tunima Tutai in the sin bin, made sure of the points through a late Joe Burgess try. And the win now puts pressure on the leaders, Leeds Rhinos, who are at the Catalans Dragons today. In Union, defending champions, Glasgow Warriors got their first Pro 12 win of the season with a thrilling 33-32 win over Connacht. At one point, they led by 25 points before the fight back started. And so actually, in the end, Rob Harley's try, his team's 3rd, was the main difference. And elsewhere, the Dragons beat Zebre 13-0. That's all the sport for now. It's still 2-1 to Everton at Goodison Park with around 3 minutes to go until half-time. But don't forget, you can keep up to date with all the sport, all the stories on the BBC Sport website. That's bbc.co.uk/sport. We'll have more throughout the afternoon for you.
Mike Bushell, thank you very much, Mike, with the sport there. Now, that's the only respite there is because we're going to continue talking about the Labour leadership. If you have just joined us, Jeremy Corbyn is the new Labour leader, and my goodness, what a result, perhaps exceeding all expectations. He was the 500 to 1 outsider when he entered the contest earlier this year, but announced just in the last hour and a half or so, it emerged that he'd won through on the first round, 59.5% of the vote. In his victory speech, Jeremy Corbyn told MPs and party members that it is time for them to unite. Take a look at the votes in full. Jeremy Corbyn, as we say, 59.5% of the vote. Andy Burnham, who started this contest, the favourite, of course, coming in second, but with only 19% of the vote. Yvette Cooper not far behind on 17%, and Liz Kendall, the fourth and last candidate, taking 4.5% of the vote. And one of the things that is interesting about this is the breakdown, which shows that Jeremy Corbyn was first place in every voting category. That means he was the first choice from members, registered supporters and affiliated supporters. And the party's deputy leader is to be Tom Watson. He won his contest in the third round. Well, there has been fallout already. The Shadow Health Minister, Jamie Reid, tendered his resignation from the Shadow Cabinet immediately. The Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, Rachel Reeves, says she is going to the back benches when she returns from maternity leave in January. And we have heard similar sentiments from Tristram Hunt, another Labour big hitter, saying that he will move to the back benches. Let's discuss some of the many challenges ahead. Matthew Doyle is with me. He worked on Liz Kendall's campaign.
Hi there.
Welcome.
Thank you.
In terms of Liz Kendall, first of all, I mean, she really had made no secret, I think, certainly in the last couple of weeks, that she didn't anticipate coming anywhere near the top, and indeed that is what you got.
I think that's right. I think as soon as the members of Parliament decided that they were going to let Jeremy Corbyn into this race, then that changed the nature of the race and the nature of the debate that we ended up having. And unfortunately, we haven't had a debate that was focused on how Labour wins in 2020. Instead, we've had a different sort of campaign, and that's the one that Jeremy has won. But I cannot deny that he's won convincingly, and he now has a very clear mandate to lead the party.
And so how is it that your candidate, that Andy Burnham, Yvette Cooper, couldn't go out there and present this apparently positive message that has won over so much of the party and said, I am the person who will get into number 10 in 2020? None of them seem to be saying that.
No, and I think that's the challenge that those that I would describe on the sort of moderate, modernising kind of wing of the Labour Party have now got to take a step back, have the humility to reflect and take a look and think about what did go wrong. And for me, I think that's about a failure to renew our policy, our ideas over the last few years. Under Ed Miliband, there was a focus on unity. I don't think that served us particularly well, because actually what we weren't doing was addressing the fundamental issues of how does a party of the centre-left continue to win in this country in the new situation we found ourselves in after the financial crisis.
I mean, is your new leader, is he a liability? Is there no hope of winning in 2020? Because that's certainly what Tony Blair tried to tell people over the summer.
Well, look, my personal view is that Jeremy's platform isn't one that will see us win the general election in 2020, but I think the challenge for everyone in the party now is to be part of that policy debate that goes on. I think there's a dilemma for individuals as to whether they choose to serve or not with Jeremy in the Shadow Cabinet. Personally, I think it's very difficult to do that without having to sort of completely contradict what people have said previously. But I think what Jeremy needs to do now is come up with a sort of new definition of collective responsibility, allow the debate to happen that he keeps saying he wanted to, and I think that means not undermining him on a day-to-day basis, but just focusing on the big challenges we face.
But then when you hear people like Rachel Reeves and Tristram Hunt already putting out their reactions there today, I mean, that is fodder for the opposition, isn't it? They can instantly leap on that and say, look, already the Labour Party is not united.
I think it's a necessary honesty from those individuals that they couldn't credibly serve in the Shadow Cabinet, do interviews with people like yourself and say, do you think Jeremy should be the Prime Minister of the country and that he's got the right policies, and be able to answer those questions honestly while serving in the Shadow Cabinet. I think it's a necessary part of the debate that we need to have, where it's not about undermining the leader. Jeremy has won, he's got a clear mandate, but we must ensure that we use the next period to have a proper debate about the ideas that we need to ensure that we do win, because I don't believe the ones that Jeremy's proposing are the ones that we'll win with in 2020.
So will he sustain as leader, do you think?
I think he will. I don't see anyone sort of wanting to move against him. I don't think that's what this is really about. I think there is a much more fundamental thing that has been going on with the Labour Party over the last 5 or 8 years, where the party hasn't had the type of policy debate it does to really face up to the tough challenges of why parties, not just in Britain, but centre-left parties across Europe, are failing to win elections. And that's what we need to do if we want to come back with a winning platform for 2020.
And when he stands and as we're seeing pictures here, and he stood on the stage and made his victory speech, and I lost count of the number of times he used the word unite or unity, variants on that. Do you trust him? Do you trust him to at least try to keep the party united?
I do, but unity only works if you actually agree around what you're united. The problem with the last 5 years under Ed Miliband's leadership was there was a lot of talk of unity, but nobody actually agreed the basic proposition that we were supposedly united around. Unity only works if it comes after a proper period of discussion, debate, and then decision, and then there is something you can unite around. Unity only works in reality if you've actually agreed those fundamentals.
And now we're in a position where there seems to be a split between party members and what they want and the grassroots. I mean, that's a curious state of affairs, isn't it?
There's no doubt going to be a challenge when so few of the parliamentary party, the members of Parliament in Westminster, supported Jeremy. So few of them even signed his nomination papers to want him to be the candidate. I think there's going to have to be a lot of soul-searching that goes on amongst those individuals. I'm sure some of them are regretting the decisions that they made. But as I say, we are where we are, to use the cliche, and he has a clear mandate. What's important now is that we have the debate about the ideas, because that's ultimately what's going to determine whether we win or lose at the next election.
And that debate continues. Thank you very much, Matthew Doyle from Liz Kendall's campaign. Thanks very much for being with us here. Let's find out how all of this is being received up and down the country. Let's go, in fact, I was about to say, let's go to Wigan. I can see we're actually just around the corner at Westminster. This is the scene again at Parliament Square. There is that rally going on that we mentioned about refugees, many thousands of people. I hope we'll be out there with our correspondent again shortly, but we do know that Jeremy Corbyn is due to head down to that rally and presumably speak to the people there, and we'll head back there and join our correspondent and get more on that once Jeremy Corbyn arrives there. As promised though, also let's go to Wigan. Our correspondent Phil Norton is at a festival there in Wigan where a lot of Labour supporters have been gathering, and well, give us a sense of what people are saying to you there, what the reaction is to the election of this new leader.
Yes, well, you join me here at the Diggers Festival here in Wigan. It celebrates everything about the socialist movement which began here. I can tell you there were huge cheers on the main stage when the announcement was made that Jeremy Corbyn was the new Labour leader. There was cheers, there were hugs, there was even champagne here as well. Many people telling me here that now the Labour Party has gone back to its roots. Well, we're joined here by Julie Hilling, the former Labour MP for Bolton West, who lost your seat in the election to the Conservative Party. First of all, your thoughts today?
Well, I'm really sad that Andy didn't win, because he was my man and I thought that he would be brilliant for the North West and for socialism. But congratulations to Jeremy. Jeremy will be a good leader for us, and it's an exciting time for the party.
Where did it all go wrong for you then, in your eyes?
I think for me in May, it was a whole host of things. It was that people didn't like Ed Miliband, sadly. We hadn't convinced people about our economic competence. The whole Tory lies about the SNP, and the Tories basically outspent and outcampaigned us.
Is Jeremy Corbyn going to change that around and make things better for people like yourself and people here, voters?
Well, I think the most important thing for me is that the party stays united. That in Jeremy we have a leader that we can all get behind to make sure we've got thousands and thousands of new members that need to join me on the doorstep and getting our message across of what the Labour Party will do for ordinary people, because people in this area across the country are having a tough time with the Tories. We've got to make sure that Labour has a really good offer for everybody to make sure that people aren't going to food banks, aren't having to struggle to feed their children, but also that business succeeds, that we've got a thriving economy. And I think the Labour Party, that's what the Labour Party is all about, and I'm convinced that Jeremy can lead us to that sort of agenda.
And we've also, the Shadow Health Minister's already gone. You say you want everyone to stay united?
I really have no time for people that are walking away at this moment in time. Of course, everybody has to make their decisions, but we will only succeed, we will only change Britain if we stay a united party. Now, Jeremy will bring in his new team, so maybe some of those people may have been sacked anyway, who knows. But it's really important that the rest of us stick together. If we're a divided party, we'll continue to have a Tory government, and that's no good for people here in Wigan or in Bolton West or the rest of the country.
Julie, thank you very much for your thoughts. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, and plenty more people here to talk to. We'll have a few more updates this afternoon on a huge day for British politics. Joe.
Phil Norton in Wigan, thank you very much, and I'm pleased to say we can talk now to the former Mayor of London, Ken Livingstone, and much else besides. Welcome. Did you think that we would see a Corbyn victory on this scale?
No one did. We thought Jeremy would pull it off on the second round, perhaps 52, 53%. This is an amazing landslide, and I think actually all that nonsense about leftism joining the party and all that, and 300,000 people get involved in politics, come along, join. I think it's indicative of something happening out there, and you see it all over the West world, in America with Bernie Sanders there, Jeremy Corbyn. People for the last 30 years have been promised so much and had so little. It's all gone to the bankers. The good jobs have been... We lost 6 million jobs in manufacturing in the last 30 years. We haven't built homes for our kids to live in. People now desperately want to change.
How much of this is to do with the fact that he is a London MP, a long-standing London MP? Because Labour survived in London in a way that it didn't in many parts of the country at the last general election. Has that added somehow to the mood or to his ability to tap into something?
You can blame me for this, but I mean the perception of the Labour Party in London is quite left-wing, and we did better here than anywhere else. And I think everybody looked at my record as mayor and at GLC at what councils are doing here. The Labour Party stands up for people in London, and I think if you look at the vote, though, Jeremy won the same sort of margin outside London as he did inside London. I think people have been waiting for someone who's going to change the direction of Britain. We were all promised when Mrs Thatcher came in, if you break the unions, cut taxes on the rich, deregulate the banks, the economy will surge. But in actual fact, it's never grown as much. We've never had as much investment since then. We've got to get to a point where we have a fairer tax system, and Jeremy's big thing is massive investment to modernise Britain. Our transport system, our broadband, build homes, that's the best way of actually getting a modern, effective economy.
But he's got to prove that he's got that economic credibility and can do that and can pay for it, though, can't he? I mean, that's why the choice of Shadow Chancellor is going to be extraordinarily important.
Because that's the key thing. If you go onto the websites of the Labour candidates, Jeremy's got several pages about how you would do this, how you pay for it. And this key thing, I mean, we've just created £375 billion over the last 7 years by the Bank of England to prop up the banking system. And it hasn't caused inflation. It's done no harm to the economy. So if we can print money to save the banks, let's print money to modernise Britain. There is no future for an advanced capitalist society going down market, low skill, low wage. We need a high tech, high skill, high wage economy, something that can compete with Germany. The Germans are doing so much better than us, but they never let their bankers run their economy.
And everything you say, everyone who's voted for Jeremy Corbyn will absolutely say, yes, absolutely, that resonates. You know that the opposition, maybe some parts of the media will say, here we go, throw back to the 70s and 80s, and this is not a modern Labour Party. That's going to be the charge that Jeremy Corbyn is going to have to keep rebutting, isn't he?
I mean, if you go back to 2000, all the same things were said about me when I was running for mayor. It's going to be a disaster. I mean, the columnist Catherine Bennett said I was as bad as Mao Zedong. And then 3 years later, Tony Blair said, "Oh, please come back and be our candidate." I think Jeremy, over these coming months, will connect with people, and that will bring the Labour MPs who have their doubts behind him. If they think Jeremy can win, they'll stop all their whining.
So what do you make week then of people who've already come out and said, I'm going to the backbenches. Tristram Hunt, Rachel Reeves, quite big figures in the party. I mean, that's not helpful, is
big
it?
figures. I mean, the vast majority of the public don't have a clue who they are. I mean, this is now down to Germany's ability to connect. Well, if you actually look at the opinion polls, 7 out of 10 of the people who voted for UKIP want Jeremy because they think he's like Nigel Farage. He's an ordinary, regular guy who's there to look after them, not to suck up to the bankers.
It's about authenticity, as far as you're
and that's
concerned.
exactly what he is. I've known Jeremy Corbyn for 45 years. I've never seen him lose his temper. I've never seen him be rude to anyone. No one could actually claim that for me. And he's a nice guy. And don't forget, I mean, the shock election result in '92 when the Tories won under John Major and everyone thought they'd go lose. The big factor there was people thought John Major's a nice, decent guy and we'll keep him in Downing Street. So having an economic policy and being a nice guy, the two most important things to win that next election.
Nice guys don't always make the best leaders, do they? That's the nature of politics.
Completely utterly
Lots of people would say Ed Miliband was a very nice man, but it didn't go so well for you at the general election.
I know.
So
you see, the key problem there is people like me were saying to Ed Miliband and Ed Balls, adopt the sort of economic strategy that Jeremy's got. Use quantitative easing to modernise the economy. Have a fair tax. Go after Google and Starbucks and Amazon who aren't paying their tax here. If we get the big corporations to pay their fair share tax, we don't have to increase taxes on ordinary people and small and medium-sized firms. But the Eds wouldn't have that. And we are into the election sort of austerity-like. We're going to do what the Tories did, but not as nastily. That wasn't inspiring.
So is it a concern for you in the coming months that there does appear to be a divide between the party and the grassroots members? Because the grassroots members have made their opinions perfectly clear today. Is that an anxiety?
It's quite interesting because it isn't just the new members who joined who supported Jeremy. He won a majority among the ones that have been there all through the Blair years as well. And so I think that people will come to it. You heard his speech. He's very open. I mean, he's trying to bring everybody in. Some will object for a bit. But the moment Jeremy starts to do well in the polls, those doubts will go. These are people who want to be in the next Labour government. And they will not do anything to undermine Jeremy if they think he's going to be Prime Minister with all those jobs to hand out.
Just to explain, while we're talking to Ken Livingstone, this is the shot at the front of this conference centre. Crowds, lots of people out there waiting to see Jeremy Corbyn leave. He's due to leave here to go to that rally a little way down the road in Parliament Square. So they are waiting to see him. I'm talking to the former Mayor of London, Ken Livingstone. And you say you've known him for 45 years, Ken Livingstone. I mean, just on a personal level, a human level, is he really shocked today, do you think?
Of course, I mean, when people said to him, you should stand, we thought it was going through the motion and just having a candidate there to put the right points. But then you had this wave of people come along and join. And in a sense, it's a bit like American politics, because they have open primaries there. And occasionally candidates, like whether it was Kennedy or whether it was Reagan, galvanise the public. They come along and they get involved. And I think moving away from that old bureaucratic system of electing our leaders that we used to have to opening it up to the public has been a game changer. And I tell you this, in my lifetime only 2 elections have changed really the course of Britain. 1945, the year I was born, gave us 30 years of good growth and a welfare state. Then we had Thatcher, and that's been pretty grim. I think we're at a game changer now, that what's happening in here will lead to a different direction for Britain, a fairer society. When I left school, every kid got a job. That job paid them enough to keep a family. That world's gone. We want something like that back. Every kid in Britain should have a fair chance. I got 5 kids. If I didn't think Jeremy Corbyn could win the next election, I wouldn't have voted for him. I think he can.
And you think he's up to leading this party, by which I mean this is a man who sat on the backbenches for 32 years. That's been his political career, that's been his political experience. He's been a big opposer of an awful lot of what went on in the party, and now suddenly he's the leader. That is a whole other job.
But if you look at his record, the times he voted against the Labour Party line, like on the war in Iraq, again and again, he's been on the right side. That's the simple reality of it. And I mean, he didn't sit on the backbenches because he didn't want a job. It's just all the Labour leaders were too terrified to give him one.
All right. right, Ken Livingstone, thanks so much for your time. You've been very generous. Thank you. We'll let you go, although I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to get out of the building, seeing what's going on out there, but we'll let you try. Thank you very much, Ken Livingstone, there with his reaction to the news that Jeremy Corbyn is the new Labour leader. Let's just hear the first government response to that, in fact, because in the last few minutes, the Defence Secretary Michael Fallon has been talking to our political correspondent Robin Brandt.
This is a very serious moment for our country. This election shows that Labour is now a serious risk to our national security, to our economic security, and to the security of your family.
So, let's get this straight. Your reaction to this overwhelming victory by Jeremy Corbyn is to rerun that election strategy of basically trying to scare British people about it.
No, this election shows that Labour now poses a very serious risk to our security, our national security, because they would undermine our defences, to our economic security, because there'd be taxes on jobs, taxes on earnings, and more borrowing, and to the security of every family. That would affect all working people.
And just finally, in your role as Defence Secretary, do you now think that Labour really are serious under Jeremy Corbyn about Trident, about changing what goes on at Faslane?
Well, this government is serious about keeping Britain safe. But this election shows that Labour are now putting that at risk. They're a risk to our national security. They would undermine our defences. But more than that, they're a risk to our economic security. They would pile taxes on jobs and earnings, and that will affect all working people.
The Defence Secretary Michael Fallon there talking to our political correspondent Robin Brandt. Let's talk now to another big figure in the Labour Party, one of its London MPs, David Lammy. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
One of the defeated candidates, I should say, in the mayoral election.
Right.
He lost out to Sadiq Khan yesterday.
Yes.
But we were chatting much earlier in the day before all this began, and who thought the sheer scale, I mean, you support Jeremy Corbyn, I should say, but the scale of it, did you expect the scale of that?
No, I mean, he's won in every single section. Members, supporters, affiliated unions. It's staggering with almost a 60% share of the vote. Look, I think there's a couple of things. The first thing is there is a real sense of you've got to know where you're from to know where you're going. And I think I've spoken to thousands of Labour members over the last few weeks, and they really have felt disorientated over the last few years. And they now have picked a leader who's authentic. He knows where he stands on the ground. You may not agree with him on everything, and let me say, I do not agree with him on everything, particularly foreign policy, but they respect the authenticity, the fact that he's in his 60s, he's not looking for the next job, he knows where he is, and there's a sense of direction as a consequence. And he feels or exudes the sense that he is a kind, good, decent man, and I have to say, as his near neighbour in Tottenham, he's just beneath me, he is that kind of guy.
But as we were just reflecting on with Ken Livingstone, nice guys don't always make great party leaders. Sadly, that's not the way the world works, is it?
Absolutely. And look, at the beginning of May, I was with Jeremy at the beginning of the general election. He was in my constituency, launching my general election. He came up on his bike. We were outside Spurs. None of us believed that a few months later he'd be leading the party, and leading a political party with everyone's hopes on your shoulders is a tough, tough job. That's why I think we have to unite now. We have to come together. In the end, any political party is a coalition of interests, perspectives and views. They all have to be around the table. We have to support Jeremy in this extension, this offer that the Labour Party has to make. Not now internal, just talking to yourselves, but talking to the country as a whole.
And you are by no means the first Labour Party member who has stood there today and said, use the word unite to me. But therefore, what do you think when you hear quite big hitters like Rachel Reeves, Tristram Hunt saying, that's it, I'm off to the backbenches because of what's happened today? That's not a united party, is it?
No, it's not. And you know what? I did the same thing under Ed Miliband. I took time out, I wrote a book, I reflected. I wasn't convinced that the project that he was offering was going to win the country. And let me say this now. I am nervous that the left-wing project in the end does not capture sufficiently the imagination of England as a whole, might work in London, might work in Scotland. But the Peterborough I spent 7 years in, I'm not sure. I do say that. I do think Jeremy will broaden the offer, much broader than Ed Miliband's offer to the country, but he will broaden it to the left. Nevertheless, there's a generation of young people in this country who are set to be poorer than their parents and their grandparents. They are inspired by what they have heard, and there are a lot of people beyond London and the M25 shut out of the property boom that many are experiencing who own a house in London, and those in London in private rented accommodation. They too are inspired. 9 million people voted Labour. They want an authenticity back. They have got that authenticity. We have to build from there. We may not get
so
there.
Interesting what you say, though. How do you then get those people of Peterborough that you touched on to think that this is a Labour Party for them?
Well, let me say something that many don't say. It is a tall ask for the Labour Party to win the 2020 election. We lost in Scotland. We haven't won in Chingford, Barnet, those sorts of areas in London. We've got to win back cities in Middle England. So it may be that 2020 is too long away, but I am quite sure that the surge that has come into the Labour Party is part of our journey back to power. Whether Jeremy will be the whole story to get there, only time and history will tell. But you have to know where you are in the ground before you can go out. It's as simple as that. That's what the Labour Party has chosen. And I remember back in 2007 in America when the Clintonites poo-pooed Obama. He brought new people in, he brought liberals in, he brought independents in. What is this, they said? And in the end he renewed the party. He joined back together with Hillary Clinton to win office. And I do believe that Jeremy has to forge that alliance with those of us in the party who don't stand entirely with him, and I certainly don't on big issues of foreign policy. But in a sense, that is what a political movement is. It's a coalition that has to sort itself out and then have an offer for the country.
Okay, so he may be an interim leader, but he could do a lot in that period.
I don't know. I think we've got some young people in the party who are pretty impatient to get back to government. People like Chuka Amuna. I understand why, but the truth is, the truth is, sometimes it takes time to build that coalition and that momentum back in the country. The Tories took a long time over it. We took way too long, 18 years in opposition. And let me just say, I'm one of those members of Parliament who grew up poor, believed in Michael Foot, believed in Neil Kinnock, and they lost. And my constituents need a Labour government. So I'll always be a friend, but a critical friend. If in the end, those who are middle class in the party, who won't experience hardship if we lose, don't get it right. But we've got to sort it out over the coming months. I hope to play a part in that.
All right, David Lammy, thank you very much. Good to see you. Thanks for being with us, David Lammy, the Labour MP for Tottenham, and talking about just some of the challenges that are ahead in the coming months, as so many of the people and the Labour members I have been speaking to here this morning have reflected. We heard Jeremy Corbyn use the word unite and unity so many times in that victory speech. We see what awaits. Right now, let's catch up with the weather. Stav Danaeus has that for us, Stav.
Hello there. Well, after a couple of really fine summer-like days, things have turned a little bit more unsettled through the start of the weekend. We've had a band of rain which has spread northwards during the overnight period, generally across Scotland and northern England as we head on in towards the afternoon. But behind it, you can see on the satellite picture, there's some good holes and breaks in that cloud, so some sunny spells around too, but also a scattering of showers, some of which will be on the heavy side in a few places. So it remains breezy, quite cloudy, with outbreaks of rain across the northern half of the UK into this afternoon, whereas southern areas actually doing pretty well with the sunshine. It will be quite breezy as well, but in the sunshine it will feel warm. Temperatures around the high teens Celsius, potentially around 20 or 21 Celsius in the warmest spots. A scattering of showers around, some of them quite heavy across western areas. Northern England northwards generally cloudier with outbreaks of rain continuing. That's certainly the picture across Scotland. Some showers for Northern Ireland and sunshine developing here, but a cool feel to things, certainly over the last few days where we saw temperatures over 20 Celsius across swathes of Scotland. Now, to this evening and overnight, we eventually lose that band of rain and the strongest wind, though it stays quite windy and blustery with showers across the Hebrides. Later in the night starts to become showery and breezy across the far southwest, but for most places, a dry night and a fairly mild one. In towns and cities, 10 to 12 Celsius, a bit cooler than that in rural places. Now to Sunday, we look at this next area of low pressure. We'll start to make inroads in towards the southwest, so conditions turn windier across southwest England in towards Wales, with showers increasing here. Still quite showery across Scotland, Northern Ireland with a breeze, but for much of central eastern areas, it's actually fine with some sunshine, though we could see some heavy thundery showers through the day across southeast England, and temperatures around the high teens Celsius at best. Now, the week ahead is looking pretty autumnal. It will be unsettled. There will be pretty deep areas of low pressure bringing some strong winds, gales in places, some rain, and also some sunshine too. Now, Monday, this vigorous area of low pressure will bring wet and windy weather to much of the UK, gales to the south. Head on in towards Tuesday and Wednesday, and we see another cluster of areas of low pressure gathering in the south, and will make inroads northwards through Wednesday and on into Thursday. This is the picture for Monday then. Certainly the southern half of the country looking wet and windy with gales across southern counties. Further north, some showers with also some sunny spells, temperatures around the mid to high teens Celsius.
If a GP looks at a patient across the table and says, we can only lose some weight, you're going to have a heart attack, and the guy says, we'll give you statins. No, I'm not doing that. What's the doctor supposed to do? Say no.
Greece is saying, we're not so sure we should go along with these EU sanctions. What are they thinking? We don't know how to fight this war, and it's happening so fast that we don't have the equipment, the personnel, or the time to deal with this.
The Papers, every night at 10:30 and 11:30 on the BBC News Channel.
Get up to speed with all the day's sports. Don't miss Sports Day tonight at 6:30 on the BBC News Channel, and again at 7:30.
On Monday, we'll bring you the incredible story of identical twins separated at birth during the Second World War. We're with them as they meet for the very first time. Do join us Monday, 9:15, BBC Two, the BBC News Channel, and online.
BBC One opens the doors to one of the country's most extraordinary estates.
I think it's an eccentric place full of eccentrics.
But with two lords under one roof, tensions are rising.
I try not to do anything to irritate him. Monogamy wasn't ever going to work for me.
There's no point having anything if you don't enjoy it.
I would have said Sylvie, but off to the best start.
Steady.
Not all of it's going to go smoothly.
All Change at Longleat starts Monday at 9 on BBC One.
This is BBC News at 2 o'clock. I'm Jane Hill, live in Westminster, as Jeremy Corbyn is elected Labour leader.
251.
The veteran left-winger won nearly 60% of the vote in the first round.
Let us be a force for change in the world, a force for humanity in the world, a force for peace in the world, and a force that recognises we cannot go on like this, with grotesque levels of global inequality, grotesque threats to our environment all around the world, without the rich and powerful governments stepping up to the plate to make sure our world becomes safer and better.
Tom Watson is elected as the party's deputy leader and pledges his full support for Mr Corbyn. The former leader, Ed Miliband, has given Jeremy Corbyn his backing.
I'll be offering Jeremy Corbyn my support, and I hope people across the party do so too. I hope also, and I expect him to do this, that Jeremy reaches out to all parts of the party.
Hello and a very good afternoon. afternoon. Welcome back to the Queen Elizabeth Conference Centre in Westminster. The scene this lunchtime of a quite extraordinary moment in British politics. The left-wing MP Jeremy Corbyn has been elected the new leader of the Labour Party. The 66-year-old, who was a 500-to-1 outsider when he entered the contest, secured very nearly 60% of the vote. In his victory speech, Jeremy Corbyn told MPs and party members that it was time for them all to unite. Here are the key results of that election. As we say, Jeremy Corbyn taking very nearly 60% of the vote. Andy Burnham came second with just 19%. Yvette Cooper a little further behind on 17%. And Liz Kendall, the fourth and last candidate, with 4.5% of the vote. And what's interesting is the breakdown of votes, showing that Jeremy Corbyn was in first place in every voting category, winning support from party members, from registered supporters and from affiliated supporters. The party's deputy will be Tom Watson, who won his contest in the third round. Already, though, a number of senior figures have said they won't serve in the Jeremy Corbyn shadow cabinet. The Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, Rachel Reeves, has announced that she will go to the backbenches. The Shadow Education Secretary, Tristram Hunt, have said likewise. He won't join the top team. This report first this hour from our political correspondent, Robin Brandt. His report does contain flash photography.
His white hair just visible amidst the scrum. This is what you call a confident arrival for Jeremy Corbyn. With some of his supporters singing the red flag, the anthem of traditional Labour, the man some call simply JC was propelled into the conference centre. When the result came, it was that surprise that no one had predicted when the contest began. And the scale of the victory was staggering.
Jeremy Corbyn, 251.
He obliterated the others, winning in the first round by a huge margin. So, for the first time as leader of the opposition, Jeremy Corbyn started by
thanking everyone who took part in this election, this huge democratic exercise of more than 500,000 people all across this country. It showed our party and our movement passionate, democratic, diverse, united and absolutely determined in our quest for a decent and better society that is possible for all.
He was conciliatory, genuinely praising the defeated candidates, perhaps a sign he wants to reach out. Then he turned to his core message.
We don't have to be unequal. It doesn't have to be unfair. Poverty isn't inevitable. Things can and they will change. Thank you very much.
So, who is Jeremy Corbyn?
Comrade Chairman.
A veteran MP of 32 years, he looks now as he did back then. He spent decades on the periphery of his party, associating with controversial causes, including the IRA and the Palestinian group Hamas. Now 66 years old, he's a vegetarian who's never far from his bike. So, Saturday the 12th of September 2015, the day the Labour Party got a new leader it never ever expected to get, and the day it got a leader that the vast majority of its MPs don't support. There'll be euphoria for Team Corbyn, but once that's passed, the big challenge is now keeping Labour together. The man who used to be Labour leader was quick to offer his support, but there was a warning too.
Our party is a broad church, always has been, always will be, and the task of the leader is to reach all parts of that movement, and I believe that's what Jeremy should do.
I think obviously he and Tom and the new leadership team will now want to be reaching out across the country to the public, because that's what this has now got to be about. It's not just our debate within the party that we've had for the last few months, but about the country as well.
He'll savour the moment he never thought would happen, the moment some of his critics hoped they would never see. Now the challenge for Jeremy Corbyn is, can he make the group hug last? Can he keep Labour together? Robin Brandt, BBC News, Westminster.
Well, our chief political correspondent, Vicky Young, is outside the Queen Elizabeth Conference Centre because we've been waiting for Jeremy Corbyn to emerge. I'm not sure, have we lost him, Vicky?
Well, he apparently went out a side door, jumped in a cab and has gone to the pub, Jane. So that's where we think he is, just up the road. He's due, though, later in the day to go to a big rally about the refugee crisis where we think he will speak. And we're being told that he is working on forming his shadow cabinet, and that really is what everyone is looking at now. There's been so much talk here about unity. It was very striking, wasn't it? Every single person that got to speak as that announcement was made talked about unity because they know that that is going to be a real issue for the party, because you have a parliamentary Labour Party MPs who simply do not share the vision that Jeremy Corbyn has, a vision which has inspired new people to join the Labour Party, to vote for him in their thousands. The problem is that the party in Parliament don't agree with him. Ken Livingstone's the only person actually still here at the moment. He's off too. He says he hasn't been happier in years. So the question is now, how does his shadow cabinet take shape? We've heard, as you say, from some senior figures saying they can't work in that shadow cabinet.